Let's get into it. 5 adjustments that changed the course of my career. When did you write this?
At least 5 years ago,
Okay.
maybe even longer.
So it's been a minute.
Yeah, it's definitely a while. A lot of the stuff that I put out there now, I actually wrote years ago, and a lot of the stuff that people tend to appreciate, I will reshare that from time to time.
Okay. Well, let's go over the 5 adjustments.
Okay.
First one here, and I have a couple things highlighted, so hopefully I don't interject too much. Pitching inside.
Pitching inside for me was probably the reason why I ever made it to the big leagues. My first year as a free agent was 2003. And that season, I was signed by the Colorado Rockies after I got released in spring training by the Astros. And I ended up hooking up with Colorado, went to their AAA team right before the first game of the season. So I got released, I think, with 2 days left in spring training, came home for a few days. Our local Rockies scout up in Washington where we lived, he was able to send some messages, talk to some people, and got me a job with the Rockies, with their AAA team. And I ended up meeting them in Oklahoma City literally the night before opening day, maybe even on opening day. But anyway, so the pitching coach I ended up with, Bob McClure, who had a great big league career, I think over 10 years in the big leagues, left-handed reliever. So very different pitcher than I was. I'm a tall right-handed pitcher with a high 3/4 arm slot or a 3/4. He was a lefty with a low 3/4 slot and was a reliever. So very different pitching styles, but still in the end, pitching is pitching, and you got to figure out ways to get an advantage. And learning how to pitch inside for me was a game changer. And to help understand a little bit of what that means, it's not just throwing a fastball or a pitch inside for a strike. Pitching inside means being able to throw inside off the plate when I wanted to for effect, meaning I'm trying to get that hitter aware that I'm going to come in there, but also try to knock him off the plate a little bit, get him uncomfortable. He also taught our whole pitching staff, and we had multiple pitching meetings about this. I mean, he would spend, again, in the pro world, you're with your team, you're with your coach literally every day for 5, 6, 7 straight months. So we had countless pitching staff meetings talking about pitching inside, what it meant, what it looked like, how it affected hitters, and then how to use that sort of body language that you're seeing from the hitters to your advantage. He was an old school pitcher. He taught us, and this is kind of, I don't frowned upon now. The game's a little bit different now. It's not, I don't want to say allowed as much or accepted, but he taught us how to throw up, not just inside, but up and in to get head movement. We wanted to throw fastballs inside on purpose, still over the plate, maybe a little bit inside off the plate, but in a spot where it was going to get them to get their upper body to move back. And then we talked about like how emotionally, psychologically, how that would affect the hitter, and then what that would do to pitches after that. So getting a hitter to move their head would get them, 1, aware of the inside part of the plate, 2, knock them off so they may move their feet a couple inches off the plate away from home plate, which in turn would open up the outside corner. So now instead of the outside corner being maybe 2 or 3 inches wide, all of a sudden it becomes 4, 5, 6, 7 inches wide and allows us as a pitcher to get away with more stuff. If I make a mistake, I'm too up in the zone, maybe catch a little bit too much of the plate. Because of pitching inside, the effects of that mentally on that hitter is going to allow me to get away with more stuff on the outside corner. And he also taught us that it was very effective. The typical is you go high fastball, you follow it by a curveball. That's what everybody does. By the time you get to that level, it's almost like expected. Like it's not going to trick the hitters as much as it does when you're younger. So when we would go up and in with the fastball, I cannot tell you how many strikeouts I got on just throwing the next pitch a fastball away on the outside corner and they would take it. Just because of 1, what they're used to seeing after a high fastball, but 2, again, knocking them off the plate, how it opened up the outside
I
part of the plate.
skewed their spatial awareness a little bit.
Yeah. So instead of home plate being 17 inches wide, now it plays wider because I'm getting them to move their feet a couple inches towards third base or towards first base and getting them uncomfortable in their space. As a pitcher, I had to learn to control the whole plate, not just a part of the plate or a part of the zone. My stuff was very average for that level. My fastball was not overpowering. I did have multiple pitches, so I had to learn ways to use all of them to get outs. Like as a starting pitcher, I need to be able to work through a lineup 3, maybe 4 times, and having one way of pitching, fastballs away, sliders away, fastballs away, sliders away, it doesn't work as a starting pitcher. Like I had to learn how to do things to make my stuff play better, and learning how to pitch inside was a huge part of that. Before we move on, I also need to point out that a lot of hitters don't like being pitched inside. Most pitchers can't do it effectively consistently. And that's the hard part about it. High level hitters are trained to, if they go inside and that's not your spot, let it go, because eventually they're going to go back outside. I remember, I think a couple years after this, I was in spring training with the Cardinals and literally listened to Albert Pujols have a meeting with hitters talking about this exact thing. Like, they're going to throw you inside, just
Let
spit
'em.
on it, let them do it, because they're going to go back outside after that. He was telling those hitters, just focus on your strengths, which for most of them, it's the outside part. If it comes in, if it's not 2 strikes, let it be.
Like, don't let it affect you, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I took the approach for a 5, 6, 7 period of my career where I literally threw primarily fastballs inside. It was so different from what these hitters were seeing. Most pitchers would not do that. In fact, I would say almost all pitchers would not throw consistently inside. Most pitchers are going to live outside, come inside every once in a while, but then go back outside. I took the approach where I'm going to throw fastballs inside until they show me they're going to make an adjustment, until they show me they're going to back off, until they show me they're going to start swinging at it. And then I would go outside. I am almost certain that taking advantage of learning how to pitch inside, taking that approach is what allowed me to get time in the big leagues because, again, my stuff was average. I was just like every other pitcher on the pitching staff and all the other pitchers out there. You get to that level, you have to find something that's going to separate you from everybody else. And for me, that was something that I figured out that I could do with confidence and do it consistently.
So finding something that makes you stand out isn't always going to be throwing harder.
Well, in this generation, that is probably the number one thing that's going to get you to stand out because
Well, yeah.
when I talk about stand out, I'm talking about maybe guys that are trying to get into college or get into pro ball.
Okay.
But once you get into pro ball, there are so many guys just like you.
Right.
Like I just said, there's a lot of guys that throw mid 90s now and up. There's a lot of guys. So even those guys have to find a way to separate themselves.
Mhm.
The easiest way to separate yourself is throw strikes. Walking batters is too common, struggle with commanding the baseball in the strike zone. But when it comes to guys that had the stuff like I had to find, again, very average. Now the stuff I had is below average. The stuff that
Yeah.
I played with in today's game
Yeah.
is well below
I
average.
think maybe what I meant was throwing harder isn't the only way to get yourself to stand out. And I'm probably at the higher levels.
Yeah. And just in general, throwing strikes will be the number one, any kid, any age. You go
Yeah.
out there, you stay away from walks, you pound the strike zone, you get contact, you get more outs. Even if there's guys on your team or on your pitching staff that throw harder, by the end of a season, those pitchers will stand out. They will be relied on more because they command the baseball and throw lots of strikes.
Now, isn't it harder to control it the harder you throw it? Like,
Everybody,
there are guys that throw like over 100 miles an hour, but I feel like we were watching a game one time and somebody was like hitting 101, and you made some kind of comment about how, like, yeah, but he doesn't have good control or something. And that made me think, so maybe the harder you throw it, or when you get that fast, 100 miles an hour, it's tougher to really be able to hit your spots when you're throwing that hard.
so typically with guys giving that sort of effort, that sort of energy that it requires to throw that hard,
Mhm.
they are going to lose some of that feel, that release point.
Okay.
There's so much aggression happening in their delivery and their body
Yeah.
that they lose that almost, I want to say finesse, but that feel part of what's going on. It's
That
almost like
little bit of polishedness.
it's almost like everything's a little bit out of control, a
Okay.
little bit wild within their energy that they struggle to command it. Now, with that said, there are guys like right now in our game, there's a pitcher for the Brewers, Mazeroski, I think is how you say it. He is the hardest thrower and one of the most dominating guys in the game right
Mm.
now. Just like there's a lot of guys that are the most dominant right now that command the ball really well, but they throw the ball really fast. So like there are guys like that. And to be honest, that's what a lot of these big league organizations are looking for
But
from
they're few and far between.
it's
or
not as
become-
much as it used to be.
Okay.
So again, the
Yeah.
game is bringing up and developing guys that can do both. And it gets skewed sometimes at the lower levels because a lot of these kids don't understand how to handle the sort of energy and effort it takes to throw like that. And they just come out and they're just, you got body parts flying all over the place. There's snot flying all over the place. They're falling like crazy off the mound. They just haven't learned this control aggression. The hope is maybe they will. But for me, it needs to be hammered into these young pitchers from day one. We're trying to get the most out of our body, but you have to control the baseball too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to celebrate 2 innings, 5 walks, but 5 strikeouts, right? I need to really understand that the ramifications of being okay with walking 5 guys in 2 innings, but because I threw hard, that's okay. I have to
Gotcha.
understand the long-term effects as a coach, as a parent, as a player of being okay with that. It doesn't work long-term.
Okay, let's move on to the next
Okay.
point, accountability. Now, when I was reading this, I highlighted a couple things, and in this one having to do with accountability, I underlined honest with myself. Actually, the things that I underlined are kind of all go together.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in previous episodes.
Mhm.
For me, early in my career, and again, this article is 5 adjustments that changed my career,
Mm.
that helped me become better. And I know we've talked about it before, but early in my career, when things were a roller coaster, now I understand that during that time, mentally, I was a roller coaster. My game had roller coaster results because mentally I was also a roller coaster, meaning up and down depending on how the day went, looking way too much at my teammates' mistakes, talking and thinking way too much about umpires. Looking back on it now, it literally was all a distraction. Once I really realized what was going on, and the turning point for me, and someone that's smarter than I am can help us understand why this happened, but we'll get into it. In 2003 was when Christopher was born.
Mhm.
And there was a switch in me that year, coincidentally, the same time that I was with the Rockies for the first year and with Bob McClure. There was a switch that happened where I realized that there were way bigger things in life than how I performed in that game.
To be fair, in your life up until that point, that's kind of what it was about, was
Yeah.
how you performed.
So again, that's all I knew. But when
Yeah.
Christopher was born, all of a sudden there was like this, like, oh my gosh, there are way bigger things happening. There are way bigger things that need my attention, that deserve my attention than me being upset and a sourpuss over I had a bad game. I don't know what happened. And there was a shift for me that started that year that I grew up. And so that was,
Well, fatherhood will do that to
yeah,
you.
I think I was 23. Was that how old I was when
Oh my
Christopher was born?
gosh.
Were you
I think
24, 25?
25, yeah.
So that was a huge point for me, learning accountability. And again, this didn't just happen overnight. There was a process that I think for me happened over the course of this year, the next couple of years, where I made a lot of changes in my game, but there was also off the field changes that kind of snapped me out of this selfish, the umpires are out to get me, my teammates keep messing with me, my
Mm.
coaches keep doing things that are not helping me. Like, it got me out of this mind space of blaming and making excuses to what do my wife and child need and what do I need to do? What am I figuring out right now to help me be the best who I can be, not how my teammates are doing?
But also, like, how can you continue to keep providing for us? Because you're still needing to earn your spot and show them that you deserve to be there and earn a living, really. I mean,
I don't know if that was a conscious thing I thought about, but it's definitely a thing.
yeah, you
Like,
want to keep your job.
yeah, I think it just kind of, for me in my career, everything kind of, again, I feel that everything happens the way it's meant to happen.
Mhm.
I think that the first 6 years of my career had to be a bumpy road to end up in this place where I got released, ended up where I was at with this pitching coach at the right time in my life, to where it was like everything came together.
Yeah.
And I know here in a few minutes we're going to talk about our 2002 season, but when we get into 2003 season, for me, that was when the fun really started as far as baseball goes.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on, we've got cut down on walks.
Okay, so a couple episodes ago, we talked about the goal being no walks.
Right.
So there was a few things that I did that season, that 2003 season.
2002.
No, 2003
Oh, okay.
season, when I was with Bob McClure. That season was the first time in my career where I was a reliever. Up to this point, I was a starting pitcher for the previous 6 years when I was with the Cubs. I was a starting pitcher every season, all season. I think maybe I had a couple relief appearances somewhere in there, but I don't remember what the circumstances were. So this was the first time I was a reliever full time. Because of that, it was the first time I would come into a game with runners on base, not starting a clean inning, being brought in the middle of an inning, runners on base. So I start the inning out of the stretch. So the first time I'm coming into a game, not starting inning out of the windup. So starting out of the stretch, for some reason, and this kind of before I really started to understand pitching inside, but for some reason, things were going well. I was going out there as a reliever for the first time, doing my job, throwing more strikes, and I don't know if I was thinking one day, but I realized that I am primarily pitching out of the stretch and I'm throwing more strikes when I'm in the stretch versus when I start the windup. And I remember asking Mac, Bob McClure, remember asking Mac, is it a big deal if I start the inning out of the stretch?
Well, I think we talked about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, no.
Right.
Like for me, I was like,
I've never done it before.
it was just the way that we did things. If you're starting, then you're in the windup.
Yeah.
And then if you coming with runners on base, you go to the stretch.
And it's probably one of those things that nobody really ever put that much thought into. But in your position, always having started out of the windup.
Back then, it was tradition.
Okay.
So tradition was, as a starting pitcher or you're starting clean inning, you start in the windup, runners get on base, you go to stretch. And I asked him, he was like, no, I mean, not a big deal. Like, go for it. So I did. And to be honest, I have never pitched from the windup again, ever. And the rest of my season, it went really well. I cut down dramatically on my walks. Obviously, that means I threw a ton more strikes, became a reliable reliever, ended up making a bunch of spot starts.
Yeah.
That spot start is if somebody in the starting rotation goes down for whatever reason, something happened, maybe a guy got called up, they needed somebody to fill in for a game, they would find a reliever to go in and make that start. They call it a spot start. So even as a spot starter, I would go in there and I would start from the stretch and things went really well.
Were there any comments made, especially starting the game out of the stretch? Did anybody be like, oh, what are you? That's different.
So not that season, but I do remember a few years later, I was playing in Memphis, AAA for the Cardinals. And I had an old school pitching coach and an old school teammate who he had pitched in the big leagues a bunch before that. And he actually made a comment like, what are you doing? You don't start the inning out of the windup. And I remember I either told him this or I remember thinking him because we were close enough. I'm like, dude, I got to throw strikes. And if this is what I need to do to throw more strikes, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter what you think. And to be honest, I'm at a phase of my career where it doesn't matter what my pitching coach thinks. If I need to go out there and throw strikes and attack the strike zone, and I'm going to do it more at the stretch, guess what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
Maturity-wise, I'm not going to be influenced by what others have to say. I'm figuring out what I need to do to be a competitor, to be somebody that my coaches think of somebody they want in this game. I want them to think of my name. So those thoughts, they didn't mean anything to me. I love seeing now that we're at a place in the game where you can turn on any big league game and you'll see a starting pitcher starting the game and every inning from the stretch. So that old school tradition of starters have to throw from the windup, I would say that that's pretty much gone now.
And neither way is right or wrong. It's just what works for you.
Yeah. It's a comfort thing.
Just generally speaking, whatever's going to work for that player, starting from the stretch or not, isn't right or wrong. It's just whatever's going to work for them and make them most comfortable and most efficient and be able to execute their pitches. But you kind of have to go through a little bit of trial and error to figure that out.
Sure.
And maybe that's what some parents and coaches don't have patience for, is the trial and error, the process of the figuring it out.
Yeah. So young pitchers, sometimes we'll have parents that say, or the kid will say, I feel stronger, I pitch better on the windup than the stretch, or vice versa. And they shouldn't be any different. The results should be the same, whether you're windup, stretch, slide step, load and go delivery. No matter what delivery you're using, you should have the same command and same movement, same stuff. It shouldn't differ at all.
Okay.
So if there are differences between the type of delivery, we got to get down into that kid's delivery or that pitcher, how their body's moving, and we got to find out what the issue is. The issue is usually a tempo, speed of the delivery, and a lower half energy thing. There's something that's just not clicking one way or the other. But in the end, we need to figure out what works best for us, like you said, and I got to throw strikes.
Right. And that's the job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on. Couple more. Fourth adjustment, you started working quick.
Okay. So tempo. Yeah, tempo for me, there was two pieces to it. One was the tempo of my delivery, the speed of my delivery. I found that I worked best with a little bit quicker pace to my delivery, not a slow, methodical delivery like some guys have. So a little bit quicker delivery. And two, learning to work quickly in the game. So between pitches, between innings, I mean that when that last out was made, I wanted to make sure that I was to the pitching mound before the other outfielder had crossed the pitching mound. So like my goal was for those warm-up pitches, to have those done within 60 seconds. Between pitches, I wanted to be closer to 8, maybe 10 seconds. So me working at a quick pace, I learned to use that as an advantage, not only to get me into a better rhythm, but to play a little bit of a mind game with the hitters, to get in their head, to get them uncomfortable, to get them to feel rushed. Now, hitters are taught that, hey, if you have a pitcher that is working quickly, do something like call timeout to get them off their game. I remember early in my career, that would bother me.
Yeah.
I would get flustered and frustrated when guys would do that. And I end up realizing, like, now, at this point in my career, if I'm doing that and they're calling timeout, that means that I'm doing something to get them to feel rushed. So I'm going to smile inside about it.
Mhm.
I don't care if you want to call timeout, go for it. You're telling me that I'm doing something that's in your head a little bit. Even if you're thinking about just a little bit like, man, I got to call timeout. He's working too quick. So I never saw it as a bad thing when they would call timeout, and I would, once that umpire pointed his finger, I'm coming at you again. And I'm not going to slow down just because you called timeout once. You can call timeout 5 times in a row. I don't care. I'm still going to work quick and play my game, not let you try to get me to play your game. So working quickly, I found was a big thing for me. My teammates loved it. They loved playing behind me over the years. Lots of guys that showed their appreciation for that. And people don't realize this, but umpires also love fast baseball. Umpires, they want that game to go at a quick pace. They don't want there to be 15, 20 plus seconds between pitches. They have a job they're doing back there too. And I found that the quicker I worked, the more strikes I threw. The more strikes I threw, the more calls I tend to get on the corners. Because one, I'm around the zone, and two, I'm working quickly so that umpire's more focused on what's going on too.
They're not thinking about, God, this is dragging. Probably a lot of people. I mean, baseball is not a fast-paced game, but I can see how somebody would appreciate, not just as a spectator in the stands, like sitting there for 3 hours. It's just human nature. Like you feel that tempo, that rhythm, and you're like, okay, now we're cooking. Let's get it. And they get even more, like you said, focused. They're more into it.
I know I said it before in a different episode. Our goal was to play a game in under 2 hours, 9 innings. And we did it once. There was a bunch of times where we were a little bit over 2 hours, but fast baseball, let's play it.
Even a 2.5 hour game feels quick to me when I think about it, because there were so many that we ended up, we being the other people in the stands, 3 hours plus. When the game drags, nobody has a good time. Okay, last but not least, you gave it a rest. Okay, so hang on. I highlighted again something in that one that says something I tried. So like the things that stuck out to me when reading this, the common theme is that you tried something. And if it didn't work, of course, you just let it go. But there were things that stuck, that worked for you, that you were aware of, that really helped you have success in your game.
Early in my career, I dealt with a lot of dead arm. We've talked about that before. I dealt with a lot of bicep tendonitis. I'm pointing at my shoulder, but the bicep comes and connects up there, and that's where you feel it. So I dealt with those two things frequently during the first 6 years of my career. So I don't know at what point, if it was around that 7th year, I don't remember exactly when, but at one point I realized that when I felt dead arm coming on, if I would take a no-throw day, it would kind of ease up, sometimes go away completely. If I felt some bicep tendonitis come on, it would be painful enough. And I'd end up learning, like through trial and error, that if I gave it 24 hours rest, it would go away.
And rest being you don't even pick up a baseball.
I'm not. And again, this is me. Everyone's a little bit different.
Yeah.
At some point, let me back up a little bit. Early in my career, my routine typically was I would start a game. The next day, I would even sometimes go out and play catch and do long toss the next day. And then the next day after that, I would do more throwing. There was some sort of throwing happening every day. Now there's guys that thrive off of that. As a professional athlete, if I'm not available, my career isn't going to go very well.
Right.
So I have to learn how to make myself available all the time. Once I started this kind of experiment where I would start a game, the next day I would have a no-throw day, I wouldn't pick up a baseball. On day 2, I would play some regular catch, and then I would do a small bullpen, maybe 15 or 20 fastballs. On day 3, I would do long toss and a full bullpen. On day 4, I wouldn't pick up a baseball. On day 5, I would start. So I had no throw days where I wouldn't touch a baseball on day 1 after a start, and day 4 the day before a start. And I think for the next 6, 7, 8 years of my career, I literally never had any, I wouldn't say didn't have any, but I didn't go down with any sort of arm injuries like dead arm or had to miss time because of a tendonitis type thing. When that part of my career started, again, coincidentally, there were so many different things that kind of fell into place. I really feel that learning my body, learning to listen to it, learning from all those years before when I did go down with these little small, I don't want to say injuries, but minor discomforts, learning how to manage that sort of pain and giving it a rest really was a huge piece in me being able to perform and be available for whenever my coaches need me for the rest of my career.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. If you go out and run a marathon, are you going to go run again the next day? Some people might.
Yeah.
I would be in the bed, but like,
Well, I mean, so
it makes sense that something that a routine like that would work for someone like you.
yeah. So like the thought is if you're going to throw the day after a start, you're going out there and you're doing things to get new blood to the area. You're helping
Yeah.
things recover. What I would do is I would just do some arm maintenance type exercises, do some band work to get that blood flow, but there wasn't throwing involved.
Mm.
So I was doing things to help it recover. I just wasn't throwing. I would
Yeah.
do all the running and everything I needed to do. I would actually run my butt off for the next few days, but I just didn't pick up a baseball. But as a reliever, it was a little bit harder to find the time as a reliever to have no throw days. But as a reliever, if I had a long 2 to 3 inning stint the night before and I knew that there's no way I was available that day, I would take advantage of those days and not pick up a baseball.
Mm.
So there was a way that I would figure out a way to do it as a reliever, but
It was all through the previous year's experience
Yeah.
that brought this type of awareness and thought process
Yeah.
to be able to figure this out.
yeah, making that adjustment in my career to have no throw days was a very important piece for my longevity, getting to be able to pitch for as long as I did.
Should we get into the season?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, 2002. We were in Des Moines, Iowa, the AAA team for the Cubs. This was your last year with the Cubs?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, that was an interesting season for me. I'm 21, 22 years old. Being that young, being in AAA, playing with and against a lot of older players.
Mm.
I was always kind of, as my career went with the Cubs, I was always kind of one of the younger players on whatever team I was on.
Well, I mean, coming right out of high school, that would do it.
Yeah. So let me see if I can remember a little bit how that season went. So the first Iowa in April. It's not warm. I started the season really hot from what I can remember. A lot of that had to do with, we made a conscious effort, and I know we just talked about pitching inside, but that wasn't something I committed to until the next season. But early in this season, I remember my catcher and I, we really committed to throwing a lot of fastballs inside because it was so cold, because guys didn't want to swing the bat on inside pitches in fear of getting jammed.
Okay.
And how that feels with a wood bat.
Okay.
So I remember the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season went really well. I don't know the exact numbers, but really well. But then as the season went on, struggles, inconsistencies came. You can say my season stats here in a second, but if I recall correctly, my walks were way up. I think my strikeouts were down a little bit, but the season was a little bit chaotic. A couple highlights that I remember from that season. So during the season was the first time in my career I threw a 9-inning complete game. And I remember it was a day game in like July or August. So in the Midwest, hot, humid. I think it was 9 innings and like 115, 120 pitches. And I remember going back to my apartment after that game and sitting on the sofa, and I literally couldn't move. My body was so depleted of fluids, of energy.
Yeah.
I was so dehydrated. I remember sitting there and could not move. Felt like my whole body was going to start cramping. But in my opinion, going through stuff like that, when you're out there, you're pitching in a day game, you have to learn how to manage yourself in the dugout. You got to learn what you need to do to preserve energy, to go out there and give it your all for hopefully just 12 to 20 pitches. There were a lot of things, even though it wasn't a great season, there were a lot of things that were learned during that season that played a role later on in my career. And real quick, before you ask the question, as a coach now, those moments are so valuable. We look at too many of these hard moments, these hard times as a negative versus trying to find the value in all of them to help us become better for the next time. That's a part of the process of the game that is greatly, I feel, misunderstood, especially in the younger game between the adults, the parents, and the coaches. We put so much weight on everything has to be how we practice it all the time that our energy just ends up going in the wrong direction when things don't go well versus taking like, hey, we practice it, but we made this little mistake. What can we learn from that to be ready for the next time that moment arises?
Yeah. I was only going to ask if there were snacks in the dugout.
Yeah. So I think I think back
Like now
then,
it's such a thing, like you don't want to run out of energy. Let's refuel between games, between like I think about it, volleyball tournaments, between games, between innings, whatever, a water break, grab a little applesauce pouch or whatever. Not that it was that long ago, but it was 2002. Like, were you doing anything back then to kind of refuel at least a little bit? Or did you feel like you just didn't need it?
so there was Gatorade. Gatorade was always a sponsor.
Always.
So there were
Yeah.
electrolyte type drinks.
Yeah.
There was obviously water around. I remember there being like this powered gel. I
Ugh.
don't know if I ever used it, but I remember there being like powered gel that was always available.
Yeah. Probably quick carbohydrate type
Yeah.
stuff. Just,
Another thing that was always around would be 1 or 2 big ice chests that were full of ice and water and had drops of ammonia in it with cold towels soaking in there. And when we would come in, the trainer would pull that towel out and you would kind of sit on the bench and they would put that towel over your head.
yeah.
And you would just let that cold water, ice water run down your body, help cool your temperature down.
Yeah.
And then that ammonia would,
Wake
know,
up.
get your senses going the right direction versus, that drowsy that can kick in when you start getting overheated like that.
Yeah.
I remember us actually doing that for Brooke
Yeah.
when she started
Horses.
riding horses down
Yeah.
here in Texas, and it was so hot out. I think I remember having a little
Little
container,
Tupperware, I think I
Tupperware
had.
full of ice ammonia water with a little towel in there.
Yeah.
It's a thing. I don't know how much it's even used out there. I would have that in a youth dugout just to help the kids with.
Yeah.
So
It's
a
just
few- a few-
immediately cooling down.
And it's not like a bunch of ammonia. It's just a few drops of ammonia in there. It's
Yeah.
almost like that sniffing stuff.
It
that
kind
like
of makes the
senses it.
water colder, I feel
Yep.
like, too.
Yeah, it definitely gives it that feeling that's colder.
There's a hack for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go over your stats?
Yeah, let's hear the stats.
Okay. So your win-loss was 8-12. You had a 6.12 ERA. That doesn't sound good.
Not good.
You had 27 starts. You had 154 innings pitched, gave up 177 hits, 61 walks, 133 strikeouts, and your whip was 1.54. And we have hitting stats.
Okay, but real quick, before we get into the hitting was like
Yeah.
the highlight of the season.
Yeah.
But
I was just saying we've not had hitting stats before, so that's
Yeah.
kind of fun.
so we're back to that kind of 2 strikeouts to every 1 walk ratio, which isn't ideal. Hits allowed were way more than innings pitched. So not only were my walks up, but hits were way up, which led to that 1 point. What was the whip?
1.54.
Yeah, so that's definitely not ideal, and all those numbers lead to that 6 ERA. So that was my last year with the Cubs, and I remember at the end of the season, they asked me if I would come back for a 7th season, and there were just too many things going on with my history with the Cubs, kind of how that season went down. It was just time to move on. And
Do you remember, did you feel like you weren't going to get that call up, or at least anytime soon, if you would have stayed?
I think I was just ready for a different experience,
Okay.
a different energy. Being there for 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
they knew me,
Mm.
which is a good and a bad thing. I just felt it was time to make a change, to see what else was out there, to see who maybe was interested in what I offered.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a tough season. I don't remember if I dealt with arm stuff, but obviously my performance was not ideal and it was time to move off. One thing before we get on to hitting stats, and some people might enjoy this. So one of my teammates that year was Pat Mahomes, senior,
Mm-hmm.
and he's super famous now, but his son, Patrick Mahomes Jr., I don't know if he's a junior, but little Patrick Mahomes, he's now a superstar, but
Yeah.
I remember him when he was itty bitty running around the clubhouse. So that was kind of a cool experience to be able to look back on.
Yeah. Yeah. And you and I did not live together that year. I was working at the salon I worked at in Portland, and we didn't live together, but I came out and visited a handful of times. I mean, probably almost every time you guys had an 8-day homestand, I think I would try to come and visit and stay for a week.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more you and I stories in the seasons after this when you would actually come out and live out there and we had kids involved. And Okay, let's talk about these hitting stats real quick.
Okay. You ready for this? Oh, okay. You had a 2.22 average. You had 11 RBIs, and you had 3 home runs.
Big time. Big time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Watch out, Albert Pujols. I think I wasn't there for any of those home runs either.
Yeah, in high school, I was always a decent hitter. I think in high school, I was like a 300 hitter, which, to be honest, in high school is not great. If you're going to be an elite hitter in high school, you're batting around 400 or 500.
Oh, okay.
So 300 was just okay. And I did hit my fair share of home runs as a little leaguer, as a Babe Ruth Legion player in high school, but we started hitting in AA, so I had 3 years of hitting before this season. So this was my 4th year
Okay.
hitting as a professional. And we primarily, our job was to, when you go up there, if it's a bunt situation, you get the bunt down, that's your job. If you're swinging away, if you get a hit, awesome, but no biggie.
Yeah. They're not counting on you.
Yeah, and part of the reason why there's pitchers don't hit anymore is because it's not an exciting part of the game. Typically, pitchers aren't easy out. But I'm trying to remember those 3 home runs. So first of all, let me say my best game of the season, hitting-wise, I did not hit a home run, but I went 3 for 3 with 6 RBIs. And you remember a guy named Nate Toit?
Of course.
Okay, so we played with him in Daytona Beach, 1998.
Yeah.
I probably played with him a little bit after that too, but
No, there were like a few years where there was kind of a small group of the same guys every year in the same place that we were.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so at this point, he was in the Marlins organization.
Okay.
I don't remember what city they were in, but anyways, they were in Des Moines playing against us. He was a starting pitcher. I was obviously the starting pitcher for us. And I came up with the bases loaded and nobody out. And he's played with me. He should know.
You guys played together for, a while.
He should have. He should have known that I was probably going to swing at the first pitch. And he threw what I'm looking for. He threw me a fastball down and away, first pitch. And my approach was always, I'm just going to hit a line drive the other way. And I hit it right center down the line, and I got a bases clearing double out of it. Yeah, so my first at bat, 3 RBIs. And then after that, I think I had another double with 2 RBIs. And then I think the next one was like just a regular single and an RBI. But yeah, that was probably the best overall game. But as far as the home runs go, the first one was, the only reason I remember it was because the coach put on a hit and run.
Okay.
Do you know what a hit and run is?
No, I don't know what that means.
Okay. So a hit and run.
I mean, I know the term. I don't know what it means. I don't know where it applies. I know nothing about it.
Okay, so a hit and run is the runner on first is stealing on the pitch.
Okay.
And my job as the hitter is to put the ball in play.
Okay.
Wherever the pitch is, I'm swinging.
Okay.
Even if it's 2 feet over my head, I'm going to swing to protect the guy stealing.
Okay.
So that hopefully I can distract the catcher enough to
So you hit he runs.
Yes.
Okay.
And
now it makes sense.
We want to hit the ball on the ground.
Yeah.
So it's not a line drive out and he gets doubled up, or a fly ball out and he has to go back to the base. So I'm trying to hit the ball on the ground, preferably to the right side behind him. So if it's a base hit, he can go to third maybe. So my approach is, let me stay on top of it. Let me hit it on the ground. And I make contact. I put my head down and run to first. Somehow the ball went over the fence to left center field, even though I was trying to hit the ball on the ground and I felt like I was on top of the ball.
You just ran. You didn't even watch where it went?
No. I ended up learning later, like when I got back in the dugout, where it was left center. I mean, I hit it in Iowa at the time. There were some seats, like some boxes up above the left field fence, and it like went into one of those boxes. And I got lucky. I mean, I guess.
It's funny.
Yeah. And so another story for one of the other ones. So when I played in the Arizona Fall League, which I think was the year before this, maybe. I think it was the year before. So the White Sox were one of the teams that we were combined with on the Arizona Fall League team. And a guy named Matt Guerrier, who had a great big league career after this. He and I played with together in the Fall League. And sometimes it would work this way where we would play one team a series at home, and then we would travel and go play the next series against that same team. So we'd have like 8 games against each other in a row, which was always a little bit different, but it would work out that way sometimes. And he and I, during batting practice one day, we were looking ahead. And so the next start that I had and he had, we were going to be starting against each other in Nashville.
Okay.
We met together in the outfield during batting practice one day, and we were just chatting. And we said, hey, I think I came up with the idea. I'm pretty sure I did. But I said, hey, we're facing each other next game. If you come up with nobody on base, I'm going to throw you first pitch fastball right down the middle.
Okay.
You do what you're going to do with it, but you have to do the same to me. If I come up with nobody on base, you give me a first pitch fastball down the middle.
Okay.
So my first at bat, and fast forward to when we started against each other, my first at bat is a bunt situation. I don't know if I ever told you this story. My first at bat is a bunt situation, and he had a nasty curveball.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was hard, and it was a straight downer, and it spun tight, and you just couldn't even pick up the spin. At least as a pitcher, I couldn't.
Okay.
And it's a bunt situation, and he throws me 3 curveballs in a row, and I go for all of them, a strikeout. I have no chance. No chance. So my next at bat, I come up. Well, let me backtrack. He comes up.
Okay.
Nobody on base. I give him fastball right down the middle.
Okay.
He fouls out down the right field line.
Okay.
He's late on it. He's out.
Okay.
I come up, my second at bat, nobody on base. He gives me a fastball right down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I turn on it and hit it off one of the scoreboards in left field.
Jeez.
And I ended up like seeing him, I don't know, the next day or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, I probably deserve that for throwing you those 3 curveballs in that bunt situation.
But he did his job. He got you out.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just funny how that little chain of events played out.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was your idea.
Yeah, but it ended up good for me. But as a pitcher, to give up a home run to another pitcher.
Yeah, right.
It's not the best thing.
Yeah.
It's a little bit embarrassing. I'm trying to remember. I think the third one was off of another teammate. And there were 2 more. I remember what both of them were. One was another season. I remember what both of them were, but so I think this one was, let me say what this one was. I don't know what year it was, but it was off a guy named Travis Driscoll, who I spent a spring training with when I was, okay, hang on. So it wasn't that one. That was the other one.
Okay.
So this other one was in Memphis. I hit it over the left field fence, and I don't remember who that one was off of, but I don't know how it happened, but I broke the bat.
Okay.
The bat broke and the ball still went over the fence,
Oh,
which typically
doesn't happen.
No, typically if a bat breaks, it's going to be a weaker hit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the bat was already broken a little bit or something, but I hit it just right, I guess. And
Yeah.
I remember coming in the clubhouse afterwards, and my teammates were like,
How did that even happen?
what just happened? Yeah, because the bat didn't explode, but the bat cracked enough for it to be broken. But anyways, that was a good season. I think for the rest of my career, somehow this reputation followed me. I had teams that I played on where if we ran out of position guys to be pinch hitters, I had times where the manager would call on me to go in there and be a pinch hitter. And
Interesting.
I got lucky a few times. I got some base hits. Yeah, but I loved hitting. Because of that, I wish pitchers did still hit. There were some really good hitting pitchers in my era. Guys like Mike Hampton and Jason Jennings, Jason Marquis, all guys that I played with and against at some point. But that was a part of the game that I enjoyed, and I still love hitting, and I loved hitting fungos as a coach, and I wish they still allowed pitchers to hit.
Well, the kind of tail end of this season, well, at least tail end of the summer, was a big deal for us as a couple.
What happened?
I was pregnant.
You did get pregnant.
I did.
Did you tell me? When did you tell me? On the phone. I was on a bus.
We had made a decision to start trying to have kids. We had been married not quite 2 years by this point, but we had decided to start trying. We obviously didn't think about the timing of any of it, but yeah, I remember going to work that day. I knew I was the whole timing of all the female things that have to happen, the timing of everything, I knew I was going to take a test. And so later that day, I did take it. But since I was on the West Coast and were you guys on the road? Anyways, there was a time difference. So by the time I was able to take a pregnancy test, you were already at the field. And this was not something that I was going to text you, if we were even texting at that point. But I did call a coworker first because I had to tell somebody. And I think we had decided that we were not going to tell our parents until we were together. So I think the season was towards the end enough that we could wait to tell our parents. And so I think you called me once you got on the bus. Game's over, shower, eat, get dressed, all that stuff. And you get on the bus to... you must have been on the road if you were on the bus, because you were on the bus, I remember. Yeah. So you guys must have been on the road, but I don't remember where you were. Anyways, you call me and I do tell you, and your roommate was sitting right next to you. And Wirtzy.
It was Wirtzy. Okay.
Mike Wirtz.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you told him, and I think it was just one of those kind of in shock, surreal, like, how am I supposed to feel kind of thing? Because it was just, I had the test in front of me. I think it took like 2 or 3 of them just, to be sure. But,
I feel for me that, obviously life had a long time before that.
Yeah.
But I feel like for me that's almost like when our life began.
Kind of.
It's hard for me to remember our life without children.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can remember some things, but life changes so much when you introduce kids into your world
Yes.
that I just can't remember being, I don't
Well,
want
I
to say
mean,
single, but being childless. It's what that life
I
was
remember,
like.
obviously remember like when we were getting married and when we went on our honeymoon and where you were one year and if I lived with you or if I didn't live with you. You know, one season we got a puppy and, you know, there's life, there's things that happen before kids, but it's just so monumental because for me, and I've had this thought, I don't know if I've ever said it out loud, but like the minute that pregnancy test read positive, it was not about me anymore.
Mm.
Anything that I did with my body or to my body, and I mean like exercising and eating and how you just treat your body, had to do with that little human growing. So it was from that point on, it was just not even about me anymore. And I think that may have hit for you a little bit later when you were like our, you know, provider and protector and leader and, you know, of our little, at that point, family of 3. That's probably when you started having those moments of it's not about me anymore. It's about them or it's about us as a little family unit. Yeah, it's almost like the start of your, like, now you're an adult, now that you're having children. Now you're grown up, and now here's where life really kicks in.
Yeah, I think I started feeling that, or my mind started switching to that mode when you guys moved out to Colorado Springs.
The next season.
Yeah, obviously you went through the pregnancy. I'm not feeling the same things you're feeling yet. I fly home for Christopher to be born. I'm only there for 3 days.
No, I don't even know if you, honestly, I don't even know if you were, I think you were there for 48 hours.
Yeah,
like,
so I'm not there a long time. I don't even know if
you were there for part of the pregnancy. You were there for not the very beginning and not the very end, kind of like the middle part. But I mean, even then, like I was still working at the salon and you were at home during the day and I would come home dead tired and fall asleep on the couch at like 7 o'clock. I mean,
it changes so much. When you introduce those kids, it changes so much. I think our 3 kids, they don't have their own kids obviously yet, but when they do, they don't realize how much things are going to change for them. They just no perspective. Think we can talk to them about it, but you have to experience it to really understand what those emotions are like, what time is like. The time is not yours anymore, especially when they're little. Every second of the day revolves around them. Every second of the day.
It does. I mean, I remember when Christopher was born, my dad, he was like, you know, now you know, implying now I know the level of love that he feels for me. But to be honest, like in the moment that he actually said it, I think I was like still in the hospital. I agreed because yes, I do know, but it hadn't really hit me yet because I was still high on the epidural or delivery or something. It wasn't all there, but even stuff that it just doesn't sink in until you're just in the thick of it. Yeah. It's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that we've covered these 5 adjustments, what is one piece of advice that you'd give a player?
One piece of advice that I would give players is to learn humility, to understand that no matter how good you are, there's always somebody out there that is as good or better than you are. Nobody is bigger than this game, even guys who played this game for a long time. There's always someone better than they are. So keep working your butt off, stay humble, and experiment. Try to figure out things to make yourself better.